This is Baxter Colburn, host of the Verse of the Day podcast. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
What's up, everybody? This is Christian Heimel, host of Press Row here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, Press Row, where we talk about the biggest issues in sports with the analysts, experts, and reporters who cover them. No nonsense, hard-hitting interviews on the sports topics you're talking about. A new show comes out every single Thursday. And don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of Press Row. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Your Soccer Passport World Cup edition here on Public House Media. My name is Brice Burge. He's Ivan Sanchez Carrasco. We now have our bracket set. We have our group stages finalized. We know which third place teams are going to move on. And ultimately, there's been some more controversy just to throw this all in our faces as well. Let's start off with some of that controversy. Namely, I would say that since the last time we talked, the big controversy, there's only one big game to talk about. It has to be that Scotland-Argentina game. And
the drama, Bryce, the drama.
It is full of drama, and I don't think I've ever seen two nations collectively come together to hate officials like that before. You know, so I mean, there's definitely the law of common opponents were shared between Scotland and Argentina. I think it may have made up for the Falkland War.
So I guess before we get into it, let's set the stage. When we left off last time, half the games were set, half the group's final stage games were set. We had 3 groups left. We had a battle for third place with Brazil and China already in. Cameroon had 3 points with a -2 goal differential, and then you had all these third and fourth place teams from these last 4 groups playing each other. So it's set up for probably more interesting than the battles for first and second, because those all kind of went chalk while we go through this. And it kind of became this battle for third that was the most interesting part over the last 2 days.
I'll agree with that. Just because you had the opportunities and the seeding, that was really kind of the big one. We saw in Group E when you had Netherlands and Canada fighting out for the top and legitimate seeding issues there. You also had Cameroon and New Zealand. Both of those teams could move on with a win. Thailand and Chile also played each other. Both of those teams could theoretically move on with the win, but it'd be harder on goal differential. Both teams, and then if a draw happened, then a draw would just throw everything up in the air, and that's kind of what happened with that Scotland-Argentina game. Bedlam.
Let's get to it. First, let's get it out of the way. England beat Japan. A game where England was had control of most of the game. They kind of struggled to close out the game, which they've been doing all tournament long, kind of the last 15 minutes letting teams hang around. But they got a 2-0 win, and they win the group undefeated. They move on. Japan gets second. But it's the Scotland-Argentina game, which was the real buzzer, with Scotland up 3-0 after 75 minutes of play, and they put themselves in a fantastic position to move on. They would have been third place in the third place group with a better goal differential than Nigeria. And Argentina, who hadn't scored a goal all tournament, all of a sudden wakes up, and they get a goal in the 74th, they get an own goal in the 79th, and then one of the big controversies of the tournament kind of rang its ugly head again with a PK where they miss it. And then they get called back because Scotland keeper got off its line again. And at least this kind of breaks your prediction that they were trying to screw all the non-European teams over, because now they just screwed Scotland.
Well, I mean, that That comment was initially made because it was about the powerhouses, but when you look at Scotland's not a female powerhouse either, and this was also an Asian officiating crew that did that when it was, I don't believe either of the other big VAR moments were Asian officiating crews. They were European officiating crews. So, there's some overlap with that. I thought that the call to go to VAR was consistent with the rest of the tournament, which is disgusting and a vast abuse of power of technology. It really, really, really sunk the game. I thought it undermined what Argentina did. Now, technically, with the draw, it didn't eliminate Argentina. Argentina lived to fight another day, at least until.
It's made it more interesting.
Yeah, but
go to this morning.
Not. Drama like that is not good for soccer. I don't care who you are. It's when you have a controversy based on something that's supposed to help you. We don't have this issue in baseball when we have reviews of home runs. We don't have this issue in football with the actual technology being used. I mean, there was that, whether or not something could be challenged has popped up in indoor football, outdoor football already in the early CFL season. But nobody looks at the screen and says, hey, this is a problem. I mean, we've just relegated the Women's World Cup to golf, where people are calling in infractions because they are able to use a television screen from 2,000 miles away. That's how disgusting this is. And I had it before, and I've had it now. It's completely unacceptable to think that this is a procedure that is good for the sport when it's being abused like this. And I don't find this to be an adequate judge of Scottish or Argentinian play.
I agree with
disgusting.
You. I agree with you that, it's gone so tidbitty, especially, I went on my rant last episode about how hard it is being a goalkeeper already in PKs, so I'll stick with that. But this is Scotland's fault. They're up 3-0 with 15 minutes left, and then you just saw a team who doesn't have the experience and was too naive to close this game out, and Scotland allowed the situation to happen by letting it get there. Scotland had this in their control against a team that struggled to score goals all tournament long. So, yes, while this situation is terrible as it rings its ugly head again, this PK situation that's kind of manifesting and taking over this tournament, this is on Scotland. They have to close this game out. They have to. If you want to move on, especially with how lenient it is with the third-place teams, you have to close out a 3-0 game.
But even when it was 3-3, there should have been a considerably longer amount of time once it hit stoppage time because of the VAR. And that's the other issue, is that neither squad had the opportunity to step up and say, we need to rectify what happened. Because when you look at that second goal was a deflection. That's like blaming a quarterback because it bounced off of 2 or 3 wide receivers' fingertips and then just falls into the breadbasket of a defender.
3-0 up with 15 minutes left. You have to close the game out. I'm sorry, you cannot let it get to that situation. You have to close it out. Yes, the second one's an own goal, it's a deflection, but you have to close it out. You can't. You have to. No excuses. No excuses.
No, this should have been a 3-1 game, 3-2 with a lucky bounce, and that should have never happened.
Yeah,
and that's the way that's the only way that it goes. As far as I'm concerned, like. That officiating crew doesn't officiate again. Like, that's too big of a mistake.
Well, Scotland blew this.
I mean, Scotland did. I mean, and this is the rough part about it all, is because when you deal with officials, you try to go in and say, hey, you never want to put the game in an official's hands. Whether that's in real life or whether that's in with metaphors for the legal system or something like that, or an actual gameplay scenario where you are too close to your opponent, where a specific action or two by the official can change the game. You never want to be in that place. But while we were talking about the benefits of this before, with the third place games being more compelling, that just now gets to the point that, yeah, Scotland and Argentina are going to get rolled by some of these squads, like the French or the U.S. or something like that, and I don't think Thailand should be there, and I think Thailand got lucky in qualifiers because I think North Korea probably would have done better than Thailand at this tournament. But ultimately, if you're trying to get this compelling game, if you're trying to grow the sport and you're trying to set this up, why the heck are you using such terrible officials that are consistently across the board botching up VAR on this specific type of call that has never influenced another tournament of its type ever? There's never been a Gold Cup, a Copa America, club country, nothing. Men, women, nothing. It has been this tournament where VAR with goalies off the line has been a problem, and you have to start looking at why it's like that, and it infuriates me because it completely degrades the tournament.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I went on my rant last time with this. I won't repeat it again. What really infuriated me about this game, before we move on, was the fact that Argentina and Scotland were wearing their away jerseys, so Argentina was looking like Scotland all game long, and I was getting confused.
I will give you that. But Scotland was purposely trying to go pink the entire time, though, because of...
I would too. Those jerseys were super awesome. But... So where that left us after yesterday was England first, Japan second, Scotland out, Argentina, Nigeria third in third place, Argentina fourth in the third place matchups with 2 points, which meant entering today, if Cameroon and New Zealand tied and Thailand and Chile tied, Argentina was going to be the fourth place team moving on. Correct. And Nigeria was going to finish third. So now that leaves us to today, where Netherlands beat Canada again, unable to beat one of the more elite teams in the world, even though it looked like they had better run of play. They created more chances, more shots, and I think more shots on goal. But again, they failed to beat one of the elite teams. What does that concern you going to the knockout stage for Canada? Are they just a quarterfinal? Are they quarterfinalists at most? Are they even quarterfinalist material?
Oh, I think the Netherlands ultimately was a more surprising team than we gave them credit for. They've been a very solid team the entire time throughout, and they did really well in European qualifiers. I think what Canada's big issue is that they were losing opportunities to accurately get the ball near the box for a shot. And so, yeah, shots on goal were the same for both squads, but it was shots total that were higher for the Canadians, and they looked off foot. They looked like they weren't able to get the pass before the assist before the goal, and because of that, it's kind of like if you're hitting a combination shot on a pool table. Like you get that first one off just a little bit, even though that it looks like it could go in, it just kind of shakes everything up a little bit, and so that second assist, if you will, to use kind of a hockey comparison, was not getting there consistently for the Canadians in this. I think that's something that, if with good coaching and good awareness, you could probably push the limit a little bit more. That being said, it's really easy to coach against in women's soccer, to kind of fluster on that. You know that you can be more aggressive on the defensive side. You can use your midfielders to cause more disruption on the defensive side, and that's something that I think is kind of the fatal flaw of Canada right now, is that would be second assist if soccer had that. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I mean that's kind of been the thing with Canada. We can get more into that in the knockout stage when we look at their matchup. But the third place game, a battle for third place, New Zealand and Cameroon, also a lot of drama. I think more in a positive way than the last one, where we both had New Zealand, I think, winning this game. And Cameroon came out all guns a-blazing because they were fantastic. They overpowered Canada. They dominated Canada. New Zealand, sorry. They used their physicality. They used they're a gritty team, but, I mean, they just really – New Zealand had the possession, but Cameroon took the game to them. And it paid off for them in the most dramatic way for them with a goal in the 95th minute, after allowing an own goal in the 80th minute. So for them to also mentally bounce back, I mean, what a huge surprise.
And a good one too, because when you're looking at this roster, there's not a lot of other people from the worldwide viewpoint that you can really see out of this Cameroon squad. This was a squad that I think has really kind of normalized women's soccer on the continent, in my opinion, because they've kind of taken that American brashness and confrontationalistic approach on the pitch to these bigger teams. And New Zealand, they found ways around that, but it disrupted any kind of offensive approach that they had, really, by just trying to take possession. It was like, imagine the worst Osario game for Mexican men's side in terms of like possession, but not being able to do anything with the ball when they got into the offensive half of the field. That's kind of what New Zealand looked like in this matchup. And Cameroon owned it. I'm glad that they're moving on for sure. This is a squad. They're going to go up against England in the next round, but it's going to be fun.
Yeah, they've been physical all tournament long too, Cameroon, and New Zealand just did not know how to handle it, and I think they were, for me, probably New Zealand, the most disappointing team of the tournament, especially when you look at the teams who've been knocked out. But entering the final group stage games for Group F, that left Cameroon third place, which automatically left them qualified for the round of 16 with 3 points and a -2 different goal differential, same as Nigeria, but they scored 3 goals to Nigeria's 2. So that meant entering the final group stage games between Chile and Argentina, Chile and Thailand, that Chile needed 3 goals to move on to knock out Nigeria, or anything less, Nigeria would move on as the 4th place team. And Chile had it. PK called in the 86th minute. They're up 2-0. They were banging on the door. Thailand were holding on for their grit of their teeth. They battled. They held. A couple shots off the post before that. Couple of clearances off the line, but Chile had it in their hands. PK in the 86th minute, and it hits the crossbar. They miss. There 7 minutes of added time. Chile could not wrangle up another opportunity against Thailand. That left them at 3 points. That left them at a -3 goal differential, and that left them out of the tournament. And that left Nigeria, who had to wait from Monday to Thursday to see if they were going to qualify and move on, into the round of 16, making it the first time 2 African teams have made it to the round of 16 in a Women's World Cup.
It also knocks out the South American continent as well.
Besides Brazil.
Oh yeah, I forgot Brazil's in there. I keep forgetting about Brazil. Oh man, being in my tournament this time around has been Brazil. But I look at this Chilean squad. They put up 30 shots. I don't think they put up 6 shots in the previous 2 games.
Yeah, it was all. We talked about it. It was all there for them to play for, and they had it, and they weren't able to capitalize.
Well, it's not like they didn't know what they needed to do. They got the world's best goaltender back there, so it's like the opposite of what you usually do with one up top. You put one up back, and so it was like one defender and the goalkeeper, and they said like, all right, we're good. We're just going to put 9 forward. And and for the most part, it worked. It created opportunities. Even that own goal, to a point, showed that it was consistent pressure against a worn-out defense for Thailand the entire time. It was a lot of fun to watch them scramble and see what they could do. Ultimately, I don't think this game was I don't think Chile lost this tournament on that PK. I think they missed that. They missed this advancement in the tournament earlier on when they played Chile, or when they played Sweden, allowing a goal in basically the last play of stoppage time.
Yeah.
I think that's, based on how this team has been set up and what was expected of them the entire time, I think that was the play that really kind of sealed the deal for them to go 2-0 down that late, especially with the way that game had gone, and allowing 2 goals in the final 10 minutes of play. Just a bummer there for Chile after they had played so hard earlier on. And I'm looking at it, it was 5 shots against Sweden, and they managed just 1 shot against the United States. So it was 6 total shots So they had 5 times more shots in their game against Thailand than their previous 2 games together. So absolutely ridiculous stat line there for the Chileans. And more importantly, an absolutely unfortunate stat line for the Thailand team, allowing 30 shots in this matchup, taking only 5 of their own, a negative goal differential, I believe 19. It was just maybe 20. But
yeah, well, they got their goal. They got their goal against Sweden.
Yeah, okay. So it's a goal differential of minus 19 because they allowed 20.
Yeah. Well, so wrap this third place up. We got Brazil first in the third places, China second, Cameroon third, Nigeria fourth, Chile fifth, Argentina sixth, Chile and Argentina out. The other 4 move on. Finally, the last game. USA beat Sweden in their first real test, 2-0. A third-minute goal by Horan and Anderson and Anderson own goal that was questionable because it looked like it was offsides in the lead up to it, which they went to VAR. Kylie Lloyd was offsides. They decided that just because she didn't touch the ball, even though she affected the reaction of the defenders, it was not offsides. But USA, in their first big test, win 2-0. What'd you think?
I thought that the United States was focusing on their defense. When this was their first real test, this was their first real opportunity to get that defense back up onto the swing of things. I mean, they still had 16 shots in this game for the United States, and they're still leading shots total the entire tournament, thanks to that opening round blowout. But this was an opportunity for them to kind of think about what would happen when the other team gets an opportunity. 7 shots, 2 on target, which meant two big stops there by the defense for the Americans. And they had the opportunity to kind of disrupt some passes, too. Pass accuracy was only 67% for Sweden. I think that's a big one when you start thinking about how this defense is going to have to pair in with such a vital offense. And that offense is really going to keep pushing and pushing and pushing the ball. You really have to make sure that you're getting the ball to your offense as soon as possible, and kind of disrupting that pass accuracy numbers is going to be key for the United States in the knockout round.
Yeah, I'm not sold on their defense. Quickly, I want to talk about the U.S. offense. The midfield is what impresses me the most. Their 3-women midfield really are able to control teams who put 2 midfielders who play like more of a 4-4-2 than a 4-3-3. And I think you saw that today where they're able to rotate, manipulate, and get different midfielders up attacking to allow their attack to kind of do what they do as well. But I'm still not sold on the goalkeeping. I'm still not sold on the defense. When Sweden would attack the fat black four of the U.S., the four would get so narrow and they would get so compact, close together, they would leave such gaps in the back. And the goalkeeper also didn't look strong off her line with crosses and centers, balls in the air. So I think there's a way for a team to beat U.S. I think unless you're France, I think France can straight up the way they play, the style they play. They don't need to change and manipulate or do anything differently. I think they have the confidence in the players to match the U.S. or at least give them a game. But if you're another team, I don't think Spain can do this just because I don't think they're just equipped to change styles in that manner. But a 4-2-2 with a diamond in the midfield would really allow teams to kind of give them a better opportunity to beat this U.S. team just because these wide backs don't get forward as you would expect from a 4-3-3. So that with a diamond midfielder, especially a narrow one for an opposing team, it really allows them to try to suffocate or at least slow down the U.S. midfield, which is so strong. And then that would allow them to really kind of at least neutralize a little bit more of the attack and really force USA to pull their outside backs forward, which would allow more gaps and which would allow them to really put the defense under pressure. But I think besides that, it's really this U.S. team is so much more talented, especially from midfield up, that you really need a special game to beat them.
I'll agree with that, and we'll kind of talk about that a little bit more in the knockout stage. And when you're talking about that formation, the only team that I think could really pull that off effectively in terms of changing things up beyond what they usually do would be Germany. Australia, I think, has a couple of pieces there. They may not run a full diamond, they may have another person just up front to try to take ball control and maybe run more of like a triangle in the middle. But there's possibilities there for some of these teams to match around. But as we talk about the knockout round, which we'll talk about in the next segment here, or after the break, because we're taking a little bit longer here, a lot longer in comparison for this show. It is going to be interesting to see how this bracket is set. It is set with opening round matches for the United States and Canada that will be big based on the teams that we've talked about so far. That will be up next here on Your Soccer Passport World Cup Edition on Public House Media.
This is John Lauder, host of The Cheap Seats here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, The Cheap Seats, where we talk about sports from the fans' perspective. A new show comes out every Monday. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of The Cheap Seats. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Welcome back to Your Soccer Passport here on Public House Media. It's World Cup edition time, and now is the time that I usually enjoy in this show, where we talk about how right we are after our predictions. And unfortunately, I have a feeling that I'm not as right as I usually am, and that's a little humbling. Let's see how it goes. Ivan, you got the actual stats. Go to it, man.
Yeah, so before, when we did a preview, we predicted how each group was going to go. We predicted which third-place teams were going to get and everything, and I got them all down. So quickly, before we get to the knockout stages, I'm going to review them. Group A, we had France, Norway, Nigeria, and South Africa were both of our predictions, and we nailed that. I believe you had Nigeria going through, so you got that as well. I did not, but so yeah, that was good on you. For the most part, we nailed Group A. Group B, we also got perfect with Germany, Spain, China, and South Africa. Group C, we both got wrong, but you got it more wrong. I had Australia, Italy, which you also had, but you had Jamaica being the third place team, and you had Brazil all the way out. And the group finished Italy, Australia, Brazil, and Jamaica. So that was the one that you really wanted to throw away. England, Group D, we both had England, Japan, and Scotland as well, and Argentina last. Actually, you had Scotland second, which they finished last, so you didn't do very well that one either. Argentina messed me up with that one too, but Group B, we both got it wrong with Cameroon finishing third, and because we had New Zealand third. And Group F, we got it right. But we should have gotten that one right, or now we shouldn't have podcasts anymore. But yeah, I think for the most part we didn't do that bad. But so you didn't get the C third place group, you didn't get the E third place group, and besides that, I think we split. So good job for both of us. I think probably did a little better, but who's counting, right?
Well, I guess you were in that case. No, but I mean that's because you had the time to actually double check and pull those up from the previous broadcast. So, I mean, this was a tournament that we kind of expected some of the things to go. The Japan-Argentina draw right off the bat definitely threw a lot of monkey wrenches and things. I think that was the one that kind of threw me off considerably to start things off. That and then the Italy victory against Australia, that kind of threw me off too. But there were a lot of things that went the way that they should have, even though that there was enough drama to kind of move along. We kind of talked about how teams like Jamaica got a bum deal in some of their games too. So, I mean, I'll take it for what it is. It does create a very nice, interesting bracket, the bracket next time around on June 22nd. In Nice, at the top of the bracket will be Norway and Australia. The other side of their bracket will be England and Cameroon in Valenciennes. on June 23rd. Also on June 23rd will be the host nation of France going up against Brazil in a very difficult matchup all of a sudden for the French. And then on the other side of that, the winner will play the winner of the United States-Spain matchup, which will be difficult and one that we kind of predicted would go in this format. So that is going to be fun to look at for sure. Italy and China will play each other in Montpellier June 25th. Also on June 25th in Rouen will be Netherlands-Japan. And then the last pairing will be Germany and Nigeria on June 22nd, and then Sweden and Canada in Paris on June 24th. Let's kind of start off with just the top of the bracket. We'll go straight down. Norway, Australia, England, Cameroon. That's what that pairing is. Out of those 4 teams in those first 2 matchups, what are your initial thoughts?
Initial thought is Norway, Australia reminds me a lot of Sweden, Cameroon, Sweden, Canada. When you talk about 2 second-place teams playing each other, where I think the winner of that game doesn't move on past that round. But I think those are going to 2 very even teams. I think Norway hasn't played to their potential yet, even though I think they played France pretty well. But that game, France also just couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. I think Australia is riding really good momentum after their game 1 defeat, and I think that's going to take. I think that's why I'll take Australia in the first game in this matchup, just because I think they're playing really well, and they're playing with a lot more confidence, and I think they're finding their stride at the right time.
I definitely agree with that. I mean, I look at Australia, and Australia had so many problems before this tournament started with coaching changes and stuff that I thought that they were going to have maybe a couple hiccups for sure, but Norway has been just disappointing to me. They have not been playing up to their potential, and that is a key issue right now when you think about it overall for this squad. I like Australia for all the reasons that you give, plus Sam Kerr up top. I mean, it's just there's nobody on the Norwegian side available that can really compare. So I'm going to go with Australia to win this one. Maybe not comfortably on the scoreboard, but comfortably in gameplay. On the other side of that bracket, you do have the matchup between the England side and Cameroon. England has been very solid, and I think they kind of showed why they were a good team heading into this tournament with the way that they were able to dispatch Japan in that final group stage game. I thought that they did very well in kind of breaking apart the Scottish side as well in group stage. While Cameroon is really good, and I'm glad that they're here, I can't see Cameroon really having a shot against the English.
I agree with you. I think Cameroon will make it frustrating for England, and will make it uncomfortable for them. But I think England's too talented. My only fear with England, and I don't think it'll affect them in this round, will be the fact that they kind of let teams linger a little too much. They don't close the door early enough in the games when they have these opportunities. They kind of let teams hang around around the 70th minute. And if you do that against this very physical Cameroon team, you could be in for a surprise. I don't think that'll happen in this round for England, but it is something to watch out for.
I think Cameroon will not have the offensive firepower to be able to do that, but I think that Cameroon has the ability to beat up and bump around a team like England where they'd be more susceptible to a second-round loss. When you're thinking about what can create an upset once you get out of the round of 16 and maybe get a surprising semifinal team in either Norway or Australia, I think a first-round matchup against Cameroon is something that you don't want. And I could see a possibility of Australia kind of just popping up in the semifinals by being able to get past England next round, which we'll have an opportunity to talk about before that. But at least looking at this bracket right off the bat, I would think that there'd be a number of other teams that England would want to face, even though that they'll probably have this win in the bag.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting matchups. This one's kind of in the middle. If I had to rank the 8 games, probably around, without really looking at it solidly, probably around the 4 or 5 matchup of really tight matchups. But I think England wins this comfortably enough.
Let's continue down south on the bottom of the bracket this time, because I want to save the French and the United States for the last one. So let's go to our neighbors to the north in Canada. They're playing Sweden. Again, similar to the Norway-Australia matchup, but I think that this time the Scandinavians might have a little bit more of an edge. I like what Sweden's been able to do in terms of creating offensive opportunities. There's just less of them because I think they're very slow in the middle of the field, so they're not able to create as many opportunities because of that. Canada, though, I'm not sure if this is a matchup where Canada can win, to be completely honest. I think Canada may be upset. I was kind of bullish on Canada to at least make it to the quarterfinals, but I'm not sure if they will with this matchup.
Yeah, it's a tricky matchup, but the same way it's tricky for Sweden. I think the physicality of Canada can frustrate them, especially when you look at their attack and the way they like to attack and how they want to use Sinclair. But yeah, I think this is a team. These are two teams who have quality, but they have obvious flaws, and you don't see them as elite. Even when you look Australia, Norway, I think you kind of look at Australia being a notch above. And with these two, they look so even that I think it's going to be, this game might go overtime, extra time, this game might go even PKs, because I think there's a very evenly matched across the board. But I think Sweden, what I saw today from Sweden and what I saw today from Canada, I think Sweden probably. Well, I'll take Sweden, but I don't take it 100% or even like 65%. I think Canada can. This is a type of game and a type of team that Canada can beat. But I'm going to go Sweden.
I kind of casually pointed out that I do sports betting. I'm not actually going to bet on this game. That's because I have such low faith in either of these teams to be statistically better than either one. I think it's a race to 2.
I can agree with that.
So we'll kind of go with that. But I'm going to take Sweden, and I'll kick myself either way with how this is going to go. So let's look at
Canada, just because I think you and I, without really discussing this beforehand, I think you and I are going to agree on a lot of these. So I'm just going to go Canada.
All right, that's fair. Let's go to the other side of that bracket pairing. Germany and Nigeria. Nigeria kind of got into this round, very last moment, last second. We talked about that in the last segment. But when I look at this Nigerian team, they've had some opportunities, and they're just running into buzzsaws after buzzsaws. And now they're going up against the Germans, who I think is kind of clear-cut the best team on that half of the bracket. Man, what a bummer to have that draw for the Nigerians.
Yeah, I think Germany's probably the third best team in this tournament, and I think they've gotten better every game. It really helped them, I think, that they played South Africa last, because they had a couple of tight 1-0 wins against some good quality teams, even though teams that I thought they were better than, and you kind of saw them growing in each match. I'm going to keep it really simple. Germany, that's my pick. Boom.
And before we talk about the French and American side, let's talk about that third one. This one's going to be the last 2 games of the round of 16. We're talking about Italy and China, Netherlands and Japan, 2 European teams, 2 Asian teams. You're going to see the cultural difference in play in both these matchups. But important to note, the European sides are the ones that won the group. The Asian sides were the ones that finished in second place and third place, respectively, even for China there. So with this, there's 2 compelling matchups. Which one do you think is a more compelling matchup, the Italy-Chinese game or the Dutch-Japanese game?
I don't know, because I see Netherlands as one of the top 5 teams left in the tournament, along with kind of England. I kind of see them as the 4th, 5th best team. Japan looked second best against England in their matchup. China kind of does a good job of keeping teams honest because they have enough quality where you can't let down or anything, but they just don't have that killer edge, and you kind of saw that in that tie against Spain. But in Italy, it's been such a surprise, and they've been such a good surprise in this tournament. I see a lot of similarities, but I think just because Netherlands, I think, is a notch above, I think the more tighter matchup is going to be Italy-China with Italy winning. But I think quality-wise, you're going to see a really great matchup. I think the more entertaining game will probably be Netherlands-Japan, and I'll take Netherlands.
I'm going to go straight up with both of those things. I think you hit the nail on the head with this, because when I look at what the Chinese have been able to do, it's been really kind of grind out, and they really haven't had the opportunities to put the goals up there on the board. And I don't like the Asian style of game when it comes down to teams that don't have goal scorers. And China and North Korea really were the two teams that led that approach. I mean, the Japanese have been the hot team lately, but China's, I think a lot of people forget, China has the best record all time against the United States women's national team from all those great matchups in the 90s. So it will be interesting, especially when you start thinking about how the defense is going to play up. But I think Italy's going to win this game. I think Netherlands is going to win this game. And it's going to probably create, I would say, the most fun game to watch in that second round, because when you have the Americans in a game, it's a little bit different when it's your host country. So let's eventually get to that point. We've been kind of putting it off and saving it for last. You've got France and Brazil, Spain and the United States in what I would consider the toughest by far pairing of four, heading into the potential quarterfinal matchups. France has, I would say France has underwhelmed at this tournament. Maybe one good game opening up was very solid for them with their 4-0 victory, and everybody quickly forgot about it the second the United States scored 13. Besides that, though, they've kind of hiccuped a little bit. They've gotten in their own way. They've won comfortably because they've got the talent for it, but it hasn't been the definitive win that I would really hope that the French would want, especially when you're going up against this Brazilian side, which has shown amazing resiliency, a lot of surprise, and this is going to be the last trip for Marta, really, for the World Cup. So you have so many compelling storylines here between the French and the Brazilians that this is going to be a very difficult game for France.
Yeah, and you hit you were right about a lot of things. The fact that France looked great the first game, opening game. You have that opening adrenaline of hosting the nation. And the next two games, they kind of struggled to make the most of their chances. They really couldn't buy a goal against in that last game against Nigeria, and they got a couple PKs in both Norway and Nigeria to win the game. I think they had a little time off. They're going to be able to recuperate. They're going to be able to focus. Their style of play is still probably the second best, or actually it might be the best fluid after watching the U.S. play today, too. I think it's probably the most fluid and most attractive that I've enjoyed watching. They've just been struggling a little bit to get the goals. I think they'll have enough to beat Brazil, who's kind of been up and down. They probably have played a game and a half of good soccer, Brazil, where I think France has probably played 2.5 good halves of soccer. But Brazil, you do have to watch with Marta. You do have to watch that attack. But I think France will have too much for Brazil in this game. But it will be a very interesting match. Probably the second best matchup in this round 16.
I agree. This is just it's gonna be a very beat up side of the bracket. We kind of talked about how that would cause problems for England against Cameroon. I think the worst possible opening round game against a team that would not necessarily be a threat to them is what the United States got in Spain. And just to kind of switch now to this side of the bracket in the last game of the round of 16, we have talked about how much we appreciate the Spanish growth and what they've done with this women's side. Spain has really impressed a lot of people, I think, this tournament as well. But now they're going up against the Americans. It's a different standard compared to the other teams that they've played. It's a different thought process for them as they head into this side of the tournament. Can Spain do enough to force the United States into problems, or is this going to be a clear-cut United States just same old game plan type thing?
So I was a lot more bullish about Spain entering the World Cup than I am now. I think their style of play has not let me down. I think what we saw from them as their style of play has been what we expected. The problem is they struggle so much to score. I mean, that's their biggest problem, is that they can't get a goal with all this possession because they've outpossessed every team they've played. I think their style will give USA problems, but I think their hesitancy up top is what will make it a little more comfortable for US. There is a potential here for the US to be in trouble, and that is if Spain sneaks a goal early, or if they're able to establish their play and kind of take a little bit off the US's sails a little bit early on, and then let's say Spain gets an early goal, all of a sudden they're possessing the ball and moving the ball, and USA is not used to not having the ball that much. That can cause USA problems. But, and it comes off a defensive mistake or a goalkeeping mistake, just because we haven't seen the U.S. Really be challenged even in this game against Sweden. That's kind of where I can see USA having problems, but it really has to be a perfect executed plan, especially the way Spain's really struggling to get shots off, get shots on target. But if they do happen to get that, their possession will give USA problems. Their style of play, their ball movement could frustrate USA. And we saw it earlier this year too. So I don't think there is a possibility here for the U.S. to be challenged. But what I've seen from USA against Sweden today and what I've seen with Spain struggling in front of goal this tournament leads me to think that USA will have too much. But there is a potential there. There is a potential there, and there's more of a potential than Sweden. I thought they were a bigger threat for the U.S. than Sweden was, and I think it's because of what I just laid out.
And that continues the idea that the United States were going to be climbing a mountain. And it matches what they've said so far in terms of, one team is harder than the previous one before them. What I don't like about the United States in this scenario is that they open themselves up for a counterattack, and this is going to be the most tested, I think, that their defense has been so far. I liked what they were doing in their game against Sweden because of the team that Sweden possessed. When you look up at a team like the United States right now going up against the possession-style team, it creates more opportunities for your midfielders and your forwards to actually get involved in the defensive game planning. And I think that's something that we haven't seen anybody try yet against this United States squad because Sweden does not have the offensive talent to do so. Chile and Thailand definitely did not. There are only so many teams that would be able to do that, but that's kind of I would say that the Spanish are almost kind of like an Australian JV squad in that, and the Aussies have had their own amounts of success against the Americans over the last couple of years. So I think that this is a possibility for them to continue that drive, but they both the United States and France have to be careful here to not look too far ahead and realize that they got work to be done in this round. And not catch themselves sleeping, or you could see an upset. At least I think Brazil has a better chance of upsetting the French in terms of that get caught looking aspect. But it's going to be interesting on that side of the bracket because honestly, you could see. I don't know if you've ever heard the story about how the Australians got their first Winter Olympic medals. I don't. So, a speed skater is in last place in the gold medal matchup. And two guys have already wrecked. They're out. This guy's sitting in fourth place, and the 3 racers in front of him all wreck out. And the guy literally just coasts backwards across the line for the gold. And it was the first gold medal that the Aussies had ever gotten in the Winter Olympics. Man, does that image has not gotten out of my head since I've seen the bracket. England gets beat up too much physically by Cameroon. Australia is able to move forward. Brazil
beat each other up, and
then the Aussies actually upset the French, or not upset the French, but upset the United States in the semifinals, and the United States is playing for third. It's an interesting connotation for all that kind of stuff, but man, I can't shake it right now, and it's bothering me. But we're also doing this. This is rapid reaction right after the last games in group stage, setting up this bracket, and that's my initial feelings for sure, is that the Aussies have a way of gliding across the start-finish line for a gold medal here.
But you have U.S. beating Spain.
I have U.S. beating Spain. I have U.S. beating France. I have Australia beating the United States.
All right. Okay. Well. All right. Well, I'll wait to make my predictions later on that. I just want to make sure I can get these right.
Well, yeah. So my predictions are Australia, England, France, United States, Italy, Netherlands, Germany, and Sweden.
Yeah. Yep. I got all of those, and I took Canada just so one of us can be wrong.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. And that was a toss-up anyway. So I mean, if it draws throughout 90 anyway, it's it's a push, no bet. So
there you go.
But we've taken a lot longer on this episode than we have before. We want to thank all the people at Public House Media, especially our editors, for dealing with a situation like this and splicing together segments. So thank you so much for that. We'll have another edition next week, right in the middle of all of this stuff. So it should be interesting the next couple of shows about how this round of 16 has gone. Ivan, what's your shout-out?
My shout-out is Andres Guardado, captain of Mexico for the men's side. Scored a great goal yesterday in their Gold Cup match. 2 goals, actually, and one was a beauty. So that's my captain right there. So shout-out to him.
Sounds good. Until next time, I'm Brice Burge. That's Ivan Sanchez Carrasco. You've been listening to Your Soccer Passport World Cup Edition here on Public House Media.